Hello everybody, back again with another video. Today we will be discussing range of motion and whether or not full range of motion is good or not. And it's not a black and white answer. It's really going to depend on your goals. So let's get into it. So first we're going to talk about strength. So is it full range of motion good for gaining strength? Well, if you're a competitive powerlifter, you're going to have to use the range of motion that your competition will consider a full rep. When it comes to somebody just trying to get a better back squat, better bench press, a strength athlete, it's not as important. And this is because the further down you go in, say, a back squat, the more pressure you're putting on your joints, say your hips and your knees and your ligaments and your tendons. So this is going to put more force on those parts of your body, not your muscles. So for a back squat, it's not necessary to go past parallel if you're trying to put on strength. It's not necessary. If you just want to get stronger in just for everyday life, not often are you going to go deeper than a parallel squat in anything, not consciously at least. So if you're trying to get stronger, and this also depends on the type of exercise you're doing. So I'm assuming for most strength exercises you're doing compound lifts. I don't think you're going to be doing bicep curls for strength unless you're entering a strict curl competition. But anybody other than a power lifter who has to reach a certain depth to be considered a full rep shouldn't be focused on full range of motion for gaining strength, especially on compound movements. So the reason this is because 90-degree angles are where your muscles are typically at their strongest. So your bicep isn't very strong from here to here or from here to here. It's strongest here. And this is because your muscles are like Velcros. So say you're at rest like this, and these are two muscle fibers. And this is also like, say it's Velcro. So just as an example, at the very microscopic level, this is what your muscles are like. So you try to pull it apart from here at rest, it's pretty easy. You go to the full stretch, very easy, not very strong. You go to the full contraction, you overlap, not that strong. When you have the most cross bridges formed with the Velcro is when it's at its strongest. And this is what happens when you go to parallel on a squat. Anything deeper than parallel on a squat is not going to be mechanically efficient in terms of muscle. Also, the top half of a squat is easier because of the mechanics of it. So that's another thing you have to consider is the mechanics of the lift. It's usually the depth and the stretch that you don't need to feel when you're trying to get stronger in terms of range of motion. So that covers the strength aspect of whether or not you should go to full range of motion. So next is when it comes to gaining size, muscular size, hypertrophy. This is when a full range of motion is a little bit more appropriate and you're not at risk as much of injury. When you're training a full range of motion, you're training all the fibers. So each exercise or each range of motion is going to train different fibers. So doing a bicep curl from here to here is training different fibers than if you were doing a curl from here to here. So a full range of motion is more important when you're trying to gain size. Also, a stretch is very important. Feeling a stretch is associated with greater hypertrophy. And you're also going to want to train all ranges for each muscle group. So for chest, say, you want to do an incline variation, a flat bench variation, and some sort of a fly variation. And you're going to be wanting to go full range of motion for each of these variations. typically you're using lighter weights when you're going for size. You're trying to feel the burn. So lighter weights, greater range of motion, more of a stretch. Those are great aspects or properties of a well-rounded hypertrophy program. Next is for power. So this is for any type of power athlete, like a baseball player, basketball player, any type of athlete really, and general population that is looking to get more powerful, explosive, athletic. So this really depends on the sport. Most sports will not be doing any sort of full deep squat. So if you look at a basketball player jumping, they're not even going to a quarter depth, really, most of the time when they jump. Baseball players, they land on their front foot when they're throwing the ball. That front foot isn't bending more than a few degrees maximum. So this really depends on the sport, but mostly you don't really want to go to a full range of motion, especially if you're training quick, powerful, explosive movements. Like I said, the muscles, tendons, ligaments are like silly putty. The slower you move them, the better they stretch, but the quicker, faster you move them, the more likely they are to break. And the ligaments and tendons are more stressed at the end ranges of motion. So you don't really want to be training much power at these end ranges of motion. That's why you see a lot of people getting hurt doing Olympic lifts. They require a lot of weight, moving very fast with excessive ranges of motion. So for power athletes in general, no need to do any deep squats. No need to touch the bar to your chest when you're bench pressing, especially if you have any type of shoulder pain. No need to, ass to grass squat before you do any sort of plyometric jumping. Even if you're, just an older person and you're trying to get some more explosiveness or power so you can walk when you're 80 years old. Almost never in any situation are you bending fully for a deep squat or going all the way down and touching your toes if you were doing RDLs. Training for power requires you to train the most powerful ranges of motion. So, like I said last time with strength, 90 degrees is typically where you're at your quickest or your strongest, which also translates to quickest. There's the most cross bridges at that lowest microscopic level of the muscle. Most cross bridges are formed at 90 degrees. So for power, there's really no need to train for range of motion at all. But this is also going to depend on the nature of the sport or the movement you're training. As a baseball player, you're trying to move as far back as possible. So if you're doing like a medicine ball shot put toss or a scoop toss against the wall, you do want to get a full range of motion to train what you would be doing in the sport. So when you're throwing a ball, you're going all the way back, getting that full stretch in your core. But what I was talking about there is more so applied to jumping or basically any type of jumping. So that's it, just a basic overview for range of motion and whether or not you should be utilizing a full range of motion. Like I said, it's going to really depend on your goals. Strength athletes, depending on if they're in a competition or not. If they're in a competition, they're going to have to go to a full range of motion. If you're out of a competition and you just want to get stronger in general, there's no need to stress your joints and ligaments more than you have to. Train your muscles at their strongest points, 90 degrees. When it comes to size, you're using lighter weights, you're putting less stress on your joints. Muscles are more activated when they're stretched. They're more primed for hypertrophy. Power, same thing as strength. Train your muscles at their strongest, most powerful lengths. So I hope that helps you out. If you have any more questions, leave a comment, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.